What a nice evening, guys.
Yeah, what a beautiful evening.
I've missed you guys. You look good today with your hair pulled back.
Oh, thanks, man.
Excuse me?
Excuse you. I was not paying attention. Wow. That's embarrassing. Anyways.
He was talking about you.
I was talking to you, Jordan.
No, you were talking to me.
Yeah, he took
See, I knew it. I knew it. In my heart of hearts, like Marta with the morphine. In my heart of hearts, I knew that whenever somebody's complimenting someone, it's usually me. I'm like Marta with the morphine.
She knew when she picked it up, guys.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to Mixed Reviews.
Hi guys, welcome to the Mixed Reviews.
Wow. How you guys doing? How was your week?
It was good. I was sick most of it.
Really? What do you have?
Bad chicken.
Oh, that's why I don't eat chicken. That's why I'm vegetarian. It's because I had a dream about Tom getting food poisoning once.
This week, obviously, we decided to do Knives Out. It was really funny. The next day that they dropped the teaser for the third one, right after we sent the text saying, let's do Knives Out this week. That was a nice little surprise.
Yeah.
So we did that. You're welcome.
We did, yeah, guys, we manifested it just for you.
Yeah.
I put it on my Pinterest board, and I made it happen. And that's for you guys.
Guys, it's been on my whiteboard for weeks now. I think about it every night.
I got a bunch of yarn connected to a bunch of different papers.
I think about it every night when I go to sleep, and it happened.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. Anyway, yeah, we did Knives Out this go around.
This was Tom's pick.
Yeah, very, very excited.
I guess it was, and I was just gonna say we kind of just all came to it, but I guess it was on Tom's list because so we have a little note that Jordan made this week to put all our ideas because we didn't have one.
And Jackson took it very serious.
I took it I did not do any jokes at all. Well, because Tom wrote Knives Out, and then Jordan wrote next to it Jorbo Likey. So I just thought that was really funny. So I wrote a fake one in Asha's and then wrote Jorbo Likey next to it. That was funny.
Except it shows who writes what. There's a log.
I also was the one to show it to Asha. So. But yeah, I think Jordan and I were on the phone when Tom wrote Knives Out, and both of us went, ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And then Jordan texted to the group chat.
Yeah, it was almost instant.
It's such a good movie.
Jackson was so excited. Jackson was so excited that he wanted to do a double feature. And I was like, Jackson, those are dense. Those are dense movies. Those are very dense movies.
Well, I was wondering too, maybe we do Knives Out and Glass Onion, but maybe we should just do Glass Onion on its own another time, possibly.
Yeah.
Because it's much different than Knives Out.
Also really
but
good.
it's also
I think you and I
good.
alone watched that like 3 times.
I'm pretty sure it came out around Christmas time.
It was Thanksgiving.
And I went and saw it on Christmas Day with
U.S. Thanksgiving. So.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was like November, like 25th or whatever Thanksgiving is in the U.S.
I'm just gonna Google it quick.
So it would have been around Christmas.
Yeah, November 27th.
It maybe would have still been in theaters.
Yeah, I think it was.
This made like 70 mil in the first week.
But anyway, shall we?
Let's watch it again, guys.
Let's do it all over again.
Ba-da-ba-dum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum.
Welcome back, guys.
Wow, that was a great movie.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. It was pretty good.
Love that movie.
Anyway, what'd you guys think?
I liked it a lot.
Well, Asha, that was your first time watching it. What'd you think?
I thought it was a good movie. A good movie about knives. Not even so much knives. Like, only a little bit of knives.
The knives were actually taken out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, I figured there was going to be more knives in here, but only in that little prop piece behind the people in the interrogation.
Well, no, he kills himself with a knife. They open the will with a knife.
Well, you don't even see it.
Tries to kill Martha with it. Yeah, you do. Well, you don't see him do it, but you see him.
Martha?
Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?
Did you watch the movie?
No, I didn't. Guys, you caught me. I did not watch this movie. I'm not ready for it tonight. No.
Oh, man. I can't believe.
Anyways, I love that movie. That movie is such a well-written movie, like a whodunit. It's just fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to figure out who did it, and then in the end, it's like, oh. Asha was even, because I obviously knew who did it, But it was fun listening to Asha go, "Oh no, it was fake. He didn't actually
Yeah,
kill
I was
himself."
plotting. I figured since there wasn't enough knives, maybe he fake killed himself and he was just making a whole entire game for his new book. I was like, this is it. And then Jackson was like,
That's a good theory. I like that.
maybe not.
I thought that was a pretty good theory.
But then my next was that Martha was the the mastermind behind it all. And then we found out that
Who's Martha?
maybe
It's an accident.
Frig, now you've screwed me and I'm gonna say Martha. Oh my goodness gracious.
That's Batman's mom.
Marta.
And also Superman's mom. Marta.
Sorry.
That's hilarious. At least I'm not the only one.
I genuinely wish I could have watched this for the first time again. You know?
It's such a good. I like watching this prior to the podcast yesterday. I didn't write notes. That's the first movie I didn't write notes while watching it because I was just enjoying the movie so much.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie. I love it.
It's really good. I think the number one thing about this movie, and is a testament as to why everyone who has seen it thinks it's one of the best movies ever made, is the writing. In my digging for information on this movie, I found a podcast sponsored by Avid, which is the editing company, with the editor of the movie. And from his testimony, the whole movie was almost bulletproof from the day the script was written, or completed, I should say. So by the sounds of it, and Jackie, I know you have a lot of information you want to go into on this, so I'm teeing it up for you. A lot of the good of this movie lives in the script, and before I toss it over, there's not a quote, but it's basically what he said is, you can tell a movie's going to be really good by the screenplay, if the screenplay is really good. However, if your screenplay has problems, the problems in your screenplay are going to be
plot holes and stuff.
Yeah, or just, bad anything. Those problems are going to be amplified in the edit room. So from the editor's perspective, he said that basically everything in the script was bulletproof, and that's why the movie came out so tight at the end of it, and it made the edit process for them really, really simple, actually. Is they just basically had to cut their script, and then it was done, and it was a good movie. If you want to take it away with the screenplay, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I have a similar thing too about it, because I think I watched the 2 hours of BTS stuff they have on the DVD, but I watched it, and what he was talking about too is we've talked a lot on the podcast about Madame Web and stuff like that, where they rewrite the movie as they're shooting it and moving everything around and in post and stuff to try to make stuff work. It's complete opposite to this movie, where once they had the final draft of the script, they went, okay, let's shoot it. They didn't really change. I don't think they changed anything. Then once they came to editing, they really didn't even shuffle anything around. They took stuff out for pacing wise. I think there was some backstory on Joni where it was some guy owed her money. She owed some guy money or something. That's why she was trying to get the money. And something about Walt, is that the youngest
son?
And there was something about Walt with his foot and why he had the cane, which backstory just to make them seem oh, maybe they did it. But you didn't need it because you kind of suspect anyone anyways. They all already had the reasons. They didn't really need the backstory. From what I saw of the deleted clips, it just kind of felt more like Last Onion, where you see everyone's different perspectives leading up to it too. But it didn't need it. I think a really cool thing he did with it was that he kind of, instead of taking a whodunit and just showing us that and leading us to figure out who actually did it and what, is he used the genre of the whodunit to actually build the suspense. So to elaborate on that, he took a lot of inspiration from Hitchcock and Hitchcock thrillers, because famously Hitchcock hates whodunits. He just thinks there's no suspense on them. So what he wanted to do was do a whodunit with the Hitchcock thriller and suspense, while bringing in another aspect of a show called The Columbo Show, is an old detective show. And what they did in that show was they would always show you who the murderer was in the beginning. So in this movie, they show us how he dies in the beginning. Obviously, we don't know the full truth of it, which is the twist. But what they do is, instead of just showing us, okay, Martha did it, here's how Benoit Blanc figures out about it. What they do is they feed us who did it, and then use kind of the genre of whodunits and the fact that Benoit Blanc is going to figure it out. And what they do is they use the genre of that as the antagonist of, we don't want her to lose. We are to get caught, I should say. We don't want Marta to get caught, but he's going to figure it out. So what he does is, like, with the broad idea of it, he like uses the thriller and the suspense in the way that goes around the traditional whodunit to build the suspense and kind of make us use he's going to figure it out against itself to then pull us in of, oh no, he's going to figure it out. I hope Marta can escape captivity. And that's really the emotional hook of the movie, is you're really rooting for her as the murderer when you shouldn't be. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
go
ahead, Jordan.
It's really interesting because like there's very few movies that like play so much into the tropes of its genre while also sort of spinning it on its head and like diverting the focus.
Well, I think the way the movie kind of has us still rooting for her is by making it seem to be an obvious accident, and like in immediate regret in her eyes the second she thinks that she killed him. I think if the movie kind of took it in a sense where she did do it on purpose and she kind of was the killer at the end of it,
which is how Ransom's trying to spin it in the first place.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as interesting, because then if that were the route you take, if she didn't show the emotion and like regret for it in the beginning, it would be just like a movie full of awful characters and you would not like any of them, right?
Yeah,
like,
she's the only one you actually like in the movie.
Yeah. Well, aside from like the detectives, right? They're kind of like neutral and kind of comedic and like the more straight-faced characters.
The one that loves the books is so funny all the time.
Yeah, he's a nice comedic
Trooper
relief,
Wagner.
Right?
I love that guy.
I think a huge thing I liked and appreciated about the movie is that it's paying such a big homage to like the old genre, right? Like this genre has existed in like murder mystery novels for a long time, and like the old Agatha Christie films and like murder mystery.
Yeah, he really talks about those movies a lot.
And stage shows and stuff. Like growing up in the theater, we did nothing but murder mysteries for a whole season, and it was like so entertaining because it's so dramatic and theatrical. And I like and appreciate that Rian Johnson kind of kept it very novel-esque in the sense that it's like, it doesn't feel just like a whodunit movie. It feels like you're watching a stage show in movie form with more drama, but it also feels like you're almost reading a book as well, like because you're turning the pages on everything and like you're not getting all the information until the very end, right? And it plays with this idea of like unrealistic narrator, which is a huge theme in novels and mystery novels as well. Where you're listening to your narrator or whoever is the subject of the scene, but you can't trust them. And they show that visually early on by showing...
Yeah, in the beginning, all the different stories.
Yeah, by showing how everyone has a different story and everyone views the night of the party differently. And that introduces, like, you can't trust anybody's stories to begin with. So it really plays into that, like, novel source by using that as a trope to kind of have you guessing as the viewer every single thing that you hear and everything that you see. Because obviously in typical whodunit fashion, everything can be a red herring and everything can be fake. And I think, like, well, that was written into the script, obviously. Like, it was written to be that way, to pay homage.
All the actors that read the script were instantly like, I had to read it again. Like, all of them say it because they were all so excited to do the movie because they just loved the script. It was a good script first.
Jordan, you mentioned that you noticed a couple of things that actually are plot holes. And after you kind of explained it to us...
Plot holes.
Yeah, they sound like plot holes. Like, the way Harlan records his own death as he was injected lethally with the notebook.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about those?
It's like, there's that. Yeah, there's that. And then, because, like, when she's, like, worried that she has overdosed him on morphine, he's like, oh, this is a very clever way to murder someone. And he writes it down in his little notebook. And then she says to Harlan that she had a glass of champagne, but we see at the party that she, in fact, does not drink. And there are just a handful of these things that are sort of one-off lines that don't really pay off later on. I was gonna try and craft a whole theory that like Marta did it intentionally, but I ran out of time. I think there's a lot of room in these things to like, you know, there's little details that
like pick it apart.
Yeah, exactly. To really just like pick it apart and like overanalyze and sort of This is also like one of those perfect movies for like a rewatch, because like having the context of how everything plays out by the end, watching it at the beginning, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I missed that the first time.
There's all they hint towards it throughout the whole movie, so that when it comes to the end, there's no like, well, that didn't happen. They didn't do that.
Yeah, I watched this like 5 times, and like the last time I watched it, I just noticed the thing about the champagne.
Yeah, I think if there's any one bad thing to say about this movie, it would probably lie in those like nitpicky things, like the really, really tiny details. Because from like a structure standpoint and a writing standpoint and an everything else standpoint, like it's pretty tight and it's very strong. But there's a certain degree to it where, like, in my opinion, and I'm just kind of spitballing this out here right now, it's not overly deep if you think about it. Like, truthfully, like everything in the film is pretty much tee up and just knocked out of the park, but it's not like overly thought out. Like the actual twists and turns of the movie aren't that convoluted, and they're not like insanely intertwined and like meshed together in like this artful display of masterful writing. It's just amazing storytelling and like really, really strong at keeping all of its bases in line. But in terms of like it being like an Interstellar style mystery murder movie, or like this overly thematic and deep movie, like it doesn't really strike those chords for me. And not that it has to, but it gets such high praise for being this masterful piece of work and master whodunit movie that kind of like reinvigorated the genre. And to a certain degree, like I agree with that. But on the same page, it's a really good movie, but I don't think it's as like masterfully written in the sense that it's like something that is impossible for other people to do.
Yeah.
I think it's just really tight scripting and just really well made.
In my notes, I kept writing, like, I wrote simple yet effective, like, at least 3 times. Like, when talking about, like, the movie itself, but then also some of the shots. Like, when Marta's swarmed by the family, and then they literally just pick up the camera, and it's like a handheld sort of thing, and they're all, like, vultures. And, like, it's not like that's a super complicated shot, much like, you know, this sort of genre is not super complicated in its you know, tropes and in its well, Jackson, what were you?
Sorry, I was jumping up to one thing I do like about that sequence that they were talking about is for the sound of that, they like, because they were working with like Skywalker sound. Ironic, because he had just worked with all these people on Star Wars, but they were working in Skywalker sound, and when they did that scene of all the people yelling, they like cleaned it all up so you could understand what everyone was saying. And he was like, no, put it back to what it was like when we had it on set. And it's just muddy. You can't understand what anyone's saying because everyone's just talking over each other and yelling. But it works so much better because it's such a hectic moment that it's just voices everywhere. You gotta give me the money. You gotta give me the money. As well as switching to handheld, as well to like cutting fast and all over the place. Like it works so well for that moment being so suspenseful. Yeah. Simple yet effective.
And now let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Jackson's mom, and I'm here to tell you about our Patreon. Starting at $3 a month, you can unlock early access to videos and podcast episodes, exclusive series and behind-the-scenes content. You can participate in live episodes and get the ad-free extended versions of this podcast with bits like this.
Family Guy transition sound brought us back in.
Yeah, we're not going to get copywritten for
that.
No,
because it's just in our ears. It's not in the actual...
Oh, so we're just going to say Family Guy. We're just going to say we played the Family Guy intro?
The Patreons get... If you watch the recordings on Patreon, you get to see.
Yeah.
You get to hear their bits.
Oh, so the non-Patreon versions are going to be fucking awful.
Yeah, if you subscribe to the Patreon, you get context.
You do it so much.
You get the gift of context.
To our jokes. we just finished the La La Land episode, and in the beginning, I cut you off going into your thing about politics or the pee-poo poo-poo jokes.
Do it again. Do it again.
And I cut you off right at the beginning. Oh, well, I cut you off doing the air horn sound effect like 3 times, and it's not funny in the main because you don't hear the air horn. But then I said then I brought context to it, but it makes me laugh every time.
Maybe we should edit in the sound effects for that.
So, subscribe to our Patreon today. The link is in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
I mean, I don't know if you guys do this, but I watch my movies with subtitles on.
Same.
When you otherwise wouldn't be able to hear things in moments like that, you actually get to read them on screen. And my favorite part about all that, because it happens a few times, like it happens when the will gets read and the Thrombies like get all pissed off and like are screaming and yelling. So it happens there. It happens when she's leaving the house, and it happens I think maybe one other time when they're basically that whole scene actually is a few times. In a lot of those moments when the will is announced and they're focusing on Alan, the executor of the will,
played by Frank Oz, the goat.
Right?
You hear things like or you don't really hear them. I mean, you more read them. It's she's not part of the family, blah, 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 like all those things. And then when they're trying to like pursue Marta when she's leaving, they're talking about how good to her they were. It's kind of cool being able to catch those smaller things if you don't hear them the first time, because they're little decisions that are made based on like how manipulative these people are trying to be. And I love that moment because for a little while you could imagine they're genuine, like the daughter, like Joni's daughter, Meg. She seems pretty genuine. Like in all these small moments, these guys and gals like seem genuine about how much they like her. But they don't know where she's from, even though they try to brag that she's from these South American places. And I took a note, Jordan, I know you had this note. I had, of all the different times they talk about where she's from, there's Ecuador, there's Paraguay, there's Uruguay, and Brazilian. So
I like the Paraguay Uruguay one.
Yeah.
Because they're both mentioned by Richard.
Yeah.
And the Paraguay one, it comes as like part of the interviews with Benoit. But then in the flashback, he's saying Uruguay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Linda says Ecuador, I think.
It was Ecuador, yeah.
And then it was Ransom who says Brazilian.
Ransom.
To be honest, I don't know if the movie answers where she's from. Yeah, and in the same stroke, Richard almost hands her a plate like she's a servant.
Like without even acknowledging her while he's doing that.
So a piece I hated about the writing is that it uses one cop-out that holds the secret to the twist. And it was when Martha finds the housekeeper dying. And the first time, obviously, you hear it, you did this.
Yeah.
And then it turns it into Hugh did this.
In the editing, she actually first did say you.
Yeah.
And then in the second time we hear it, she actually said Hugh, and they actually stretched it out.
And the subtitles say you did this.
I mean, you gotta, because or else...
You can't give it away. Obviously, it's a thing, but someone calls him Hugh. I can't remember who it was. It was a police, or someone else.
Hugh, and he says, "Don't call me that." That's
and he says, "Please, only the help call me Hugh," or something like that. So it's not like it's just out of left field. Like it is, there is a setup for it, but it was a very thin setup that holds obviously the main twist of the movie in it. And I think like of all things for a movie that's written so secure, like so tightly that's a bit of a okay whatever kind of moment.
It's also like one of many moving parts that like, you know, it also comes like very close to the end, where you're sort of like starting to, you know, we're getting to the climax, we're getting to that like big showcase of the entire thing. So like, I don't know, it's some things can be stronger than others, but you know, it's just like juggling all of these sort of things and making them all satisfying reveals.
Because the reveal of that,
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, problem is it's so much smaller than the rest of the movie. You know what I mean? Like this whole overly dramatic fiasco of family drama and murder and like secret doorways and window passages and like all these things, and then you're going to reveal the killer with a confession that was just like a misheard thing.
Among many, many other things that build to this.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's awful. I just think it could have been something way more complicated and enjoyable with like a much bigger payoff, because it's obvious that it was like he's capable of doing it. And another thing that I guess I didn't understand was the fact that Marta is incapable of lying. I felt like that was kind of like an easy out and like this kind of weird plot point that allows Benoit to believe in her over other people for some reason. And like it just comes out of nowhere. There's no history to it. It's just like in the moment we need to hear about that and see about that, we learn it. Someone tipped Benoit Blanc off to it. We don't see who, we don't see why. And it's used specifically to show that like she's lying for one thing or another, whether it's comedic effect or just to move the plot forward. It doesn't really have any big significance.
I think it does kind of help, because I think for her character and the fact that she really does think she did it, I think it adds a bit of suspense too with her character at the point where it's like, if she does get put in, like when she is being interrogated, if he didn't give her the exact things to say, if she were to have to admit to doing it and lie about it, like I think that's where the suspense of that is she's worried about having to lie about what actually happened, and then she's gonna get caught by throwing up. I think that's maybe where some of the suspense could be used from that, but we don't see that in the movie because she avoids it. But I mean, at the end of her interrogation, when she is thinking about lying, she does end up throwing up, right?
Yeah.
It's also like a, cheesy, jokey, kind of less serious element of a movie that is about murder. You got it adds some like levity.
I think I mainly have a distaste for it because you're giving your main character, through no fault of anyone else's detective ability, or supposedly Benoit Blanc is this like master detective who breaks cases. You're hindering your main character as opposed to like inciting conflict from another character. So the conflict lives wholly in your main character not being able to lie. And the only way they're going to get caught lying is if they have this kind of thing that proves to other people outside of their own mind that they're lying, which is her throwing up. And it doesn't stay perfectly consistent with the way where Jordan mentioned, she lies about drinking champagne that one night, or she's continuously tampering with evidence while she's doing her walkthrough with Benoit Blanc and the other guys. Like, she notices her own footsteps and then like walks over them and then plays the fool that she didn't hear Blanc telling her not to walk over them. And she's like, okay, well, is that lying? That's pretty deceptive. It's pretty sneaky. It doesn't give us enough rules about this thing. Like, you're not told enough about like how far is she is it a direct lie? Does she have to say the lie, or is it thinking? She says thinking about lying just makes her want to throw up. You'd think like tampering with evidence would make her feel a little sick, or even just like a tiny piece. But then, through the movie, she's lying outright and, she's holding it in until obviously she pukes all over Ransom at the end, which is a pretty big lie. She just lied about this woman's life. That's the only part about it that I didn't love and that I found a little hole in, is it's not consistent enough with the way it wants us to watch it. It's comedic and it's funny and it gives us a little insight to her character, but in terms of, the world that they're trying to build, it's a little inconsistent.
What's going on, Asha? What you thinking? What you saying?
I think that it also made you feel like bad for her because she's always vomiting. So you're like, there's no way she could be the villain because she's so honest and open and so transparent and wouldn't lie about such a thing. And also she's puking. She doesn't have it in her. So, I'm so comfy right now. Oh, sorry.
I was just taking a little snooze.
A little snooze. It's bedtime.
I've been sending Jackson TikToks of that kind of like brain rot.
The one thing I did really love about this movie was the like the cinematography of it. Like there's a lot of really cool things they did with the coverage and stuff. Like it was never really basic coverage. There was always movement to it. There was always stuff to it, which I love. One cool thing I found out about it was often they would use two cameras to get alternate coverage, not in the same way as like a sitcom would do it, where you have one camera on one person, one camera on the other person. They would usually do alternate coverage to get all the eye lines of all the characters, because there's so many scenes where there's so many people interacting with other people. For example, the scene right before the will when Ransom comes in and starts saying, eat crap, eat crap, eat crap. In that scene, they had two cameras on him getting his close-up for his eye line towards his parents and eye lines between like his aunts and uncles. On the same time, which I just thought was interesting, because both they could have a close-up, they could light it nice, and they could get all the eye lines because it's so complicated with the amount of people are in one room, which I thought was pretty cool. And they shot so much of this movie day for night. Like what they did, because they shot most of location of the one main ground floor of one of the mansions they shot at. And what they would do is they'd put gels on the windows to actually black out most of the windows so you could still see outside and it was light outside, but it allowed them to not have to shoot the entire movie at nighttime because so much of it takes place at night.
What's a gel, Jackson?
A gel? Well, it's just like a little like plastic piece. There's ones to make something colder, there's some ones to make something warmer, there's ones to just take away light or make it softer. But these, they probably just put like a ND filter, which is kind of like a sunglasses. It's like plastic sunglasses that they would put on the windows.
Just to make it darker.
Very educational, Jackson. Very, very season one of you.
Very season one of me. Thanks. There's one really cool way they did day for night. So there's a shot of Chris Evans where he's like jumping over the gate when he's sneaking back in, where they shot it like kind of during the day, close to nighttime. They actually shot a plate of him jumping over the fence and running up to the house. And then they shot another plate as well of at nighttime with all the lights on at the house. And they put them together so that in that scene, they shot the whole thing during the day. But in the scene, you have the lights on in the background of the house, as well as it's lit enough that you can see Chris Evans actually doing his thing. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
A little compositing.
I mean, to be fair, I've gone through most of my notes here. Actually, all of my notes.
Half of my notes are just me writing down a line that I liked.
What's your favorite line in the movie?
Shoot them off. Let us know. What are these lines?
So I really like when Richard says, immigrants, we get the job done. And then like Hamilton is short form for white passive racism is very funny to me. The exchange with Walt and Marta on the phone. It's like, hi, Walt. And he's like, hi, Marta, it's Walt. And he's like, Like, just these little interactions. Let me see, what else do I got?
The one line.
Oh, I liked that Wagner doubles down on the Ring joke, where he's like, looks like a Japanese horror movie, and then they keep talking, and then he talks over them. He's like, what are we gonna die in 7 days? Wagner's my favorite.
I was just saying the time that they say that Chris Evans says the name of the movie when he says Baby Driver. Just kidding. He says both the name of Baby Driver and Knives Out. Does he say Knives Out at the end in the big end reveal scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel Craig said
Oh,
it.
yeah, right.
Daniel Craig. My favorite line was, the average cop will dismiss you, spoken by Harlan to Marta when explaining his plan to her. And I thought that was hilarious because she could have gotten away with it if Benoit Blanc wasn't there.
Yeah.
When they're talking about the will reading, it's like, I've never been to a will reading. And then Benoit's like, well, you'd think it'd be a game show, but it's more like a community theater production of a tax return.
Oh, it's such a funny movie.
It's a very good line.
I love Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc.
Oh,
he kills it.
He was the first person to sign on to this movie.
He's one of my favorite cinema characters. I think this character played by him is probably my favorite character in all of film.
I'd say top 5, top 10.
What's your top one?
Definitely. Jackson Brotherton.
I think I have about 2 notes before we wrap this up?
Sorry, is Asha deadass asleep
No,
right
I'm
now?
awake and I'm just thinking.
What are your notes, Jackie?
Well, really, just to like say two things I really appreciate is one thing. Ryan Johnson really loves film. He talks about that a lot. But this movie, they mainly shot on I don't know which Alexa camera. They shot on one of them.
35, I think.
No, the 35 wouldn't have been out.
LF.
It was maybe just a mini LF or something. But they shot on that for a number of reasons, like being able to do more low light stuff, be able to get smaller in areas. But anyways, besides all that, when they went into color, they wanted it to then look like film. So they did stuff like add grain using the area color science to work with the look and not like, because shooting with film, you can really corner yourself with the look, because depending on what film you pick a look that comes with it. So what they made it look like film. And one of the cool things I found out was the DP made a specific, I don't know if he like did coding or whatever, but he added a specific thing so that they could add halation to the shots, which is, I don't know, I'm not going to explain halation.
What is halation?
I can explain it.
It's basically like a red glow around edges of light and contrast.
Yeah. Halation is basically like a film bleed. So when an image gets burned into film, it has a kind of bleed around it because light kind of damages it in a certain way. Not every film stock does this, but a lot do, especially kind of like older, more vintage looks. And it creates like a bleed. It's almost like light aberration in lenses, only it happens on the film side. So it causes like light distortions and color distortions on the edges of certain objects and high exposure areas. It's a very staple trademark with film. You see it a lot in film. And then what a lot of people do with digital is they try to imitate the halation to make it look like film, because you just don't get that on digital. Typically you get purple and green color distortions and aberrations due to lenses and color shifting. But halation...
Which they shot this on Master Prime, so there was none of that stuff happening in game.
they're pretty sharp and clean, but yeah, that's cool. Adding digital halation can be pretty finicky.
But in a time too, but probably before those effects were in DaVinci, because they colored it in DaVinci.
Yeah.
But in a time where it was probably prior to lots of those effects being, it was cool that he built something himself to then put into the movie, which is pretty cool.
Was Kill Bill shot on film?
Probably,
yeah. It's Tarantino, so probably.
I was just looking up photos of halation. I was like, this looks like Kill Bill.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was shot film. That was back in the 90s?
It was actually shot in 2003.
Oh, wow, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was shot on film. Whatever this means. Super 35 millimeters. We should watch that. I'm adding that to my movie list.
I think one cool thing too, just to get one last of my many notes in here, because I listened to too much stuff today, but I really like La La Land. Like, this one he has a lot of friends that he constantly works with. Like, the composer of the movie is his cousin. I think the DP's like a childhood friend. His editor he's worked with for forever. But I really like in the car scene, originally he wanted to like do it just no music in the car chase scene when she first starts running away. He wanted to do like a Coen Brother thing, have no music and just be really sound heavy. So they did it and all the sound was there. And the composer is just like, I kind of like made something for that scene just because I thought like maybe it could use some music. So they were like, okay, let's hear it. So then they played it and they were like, oh yeah, this needs music. What are we thinking? They were all so invested into the movie, and like he was making music for this like back when he just had the idea for the movie, like 10 years before they made it. So it's cool to see them all just be excited to work together. There was so much of that I saw in the behind the scenes stuff. It's just they're constantly working together, so they're just excited about these things, and it makes me excited about making movies.
That's nice.
It's nice.
Aww.
I also think it's crazy they shot the scene when she accidentally injects him with the morphine. Well, she thinks she does. That took them 3 days to shoot that entire scene, which I think is crazy. Not for taking 3 days, but for the fact that they had to do that for 3 days because it's such an emotional heavy scene. They were acting that out.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it took them that long because of how many variations they probably had to shoot for it. You never know, right? I mean, that scene leads into so many other scenes too. Like they probably just block shot that all there.
But that would have been so tricky for her to like stay in that emotion.
Yeah, I bet.
Also, last thing I'll say, and then we can end this podcast, I swear. Sorry. So whenever you have Apple phones in a movie, it's a rule with Apple. You can use them, but a bad character or a bad person can't have an Apple product on screen. They can't be using one because I don't know. It's one of Apple's rules for marketing.
Yeah.
They don't like the bad characters having Apple stuff. So Rian Johnson was talking about that. So he joked doing some, I think it was like a Vanity Fair interview. You know, the videos that Tom puts on for me when he wants to distract me? One of the Vanity Fair breakdown scene videos.
Yeah.
That's it. Anyways. Yeah. In that, he was taking, because Jamie Lee Curtis has her phone up, but he was like, don't pay attention to that in my movies, though, because that might give stuff away if you see that the murderer actually can't have an iPhone. I thought that was pretty funny. But actually, in Glass Onion, I don't know if they have iPhones or if they have phones. Just a generic phone.
Don't they have their phones taken away when they get to the island?
That's maybe why he did that. That'd be kind of funny if that's the reason he did that. Anyways.
I could be wrong.
I love this movie.
Me too. It's a good movie.
Wait, on the island? Like in Glass Onion?
Yeah.
No, they have their phones.
Do they? Okay. I didn't.
Yeah, a whole plot point is that Dave Bautista has the Google alert that.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, like that's all I have, man. Like, it's impossible finding bad things to say about good movies like this.
It's so fun. It's like just such a good family friendly. I know he tried not to put a lot of swears in the movie because he really cared. What is it, Agatha Christie? No. Yeah. The old murder.
Agatha Christie.
Yeah. Anyways, he loved watching those as a kid with his family, so he really wanted this movie to be like PG-13 at best, so families were able to sit down and watch them together, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because it's such a great...
Yeah, I mean, I saw it with my mom. There's the first time I saw it, so it was definitely a good family movie.
It's a family movie.
It's a Family Guy. Dun 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 dun.
Geez, Lois, this is worse than the time that we ended the episode.
That's it. Cut right there. That's where we cut the episode right there.
I gave you a beat of silence.
I'm happy.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Cool. Well,
okay.
Bye.
Good episode, guys.
Asha can sleep for real now.
Hey there, I'm Jackson's mom, and this has been Mixed Reviews with Tom McMahon, Jackson Brotherton, Jordan Vairo, and Asha Joseph. This episode was mixed, mastered, and edited by TheOldManDave. Be sure to follow our podcast on your favorite podcast app and join our Patreon for extended, ad-free, and bonus episodes. The link is in the show notes. This has been a Vanish Entertainment production. Thank you for listening.